On my wedding day, my sister made a scene, threw champagne, smashed my cake, and shouted, "This is all a lie." It was supposed to be the best day of my life. The Crystal Ballroom at the Biltmore Hotel in Coral Gables, Florida, smelled of fresh roses and warm vanilla from the candles lining the tables. My dress, a fitted lace gown I'd saved for over a year to buy, hugged my frame as I stood ready to walk down the aisle. The room was glowing with soft light bouncing off the chandeliers and the hum of guests filling the air. Ethan, my fiancé, waited at the altar, his smile steady and warm. I felt like I was floating until the champagne hit me. The cold liquid soaked through my dress, dripping down my arms, stinging my eyes. A bottle shattered on the hardwood floor, the sound sharp against the sudden silence. I looked up, and there was my sister, Lauren, standing in the center of the room. Her face was red, her eyes wild, but she was smiling, a tight, bitter smile. She pointed at me, her voice loud and unsteady. "This is all a lie," she shouted. Before anyone could move, she turned to the 3-tiered vanilla cake on its delicate stand, the one I'd spent weeks designing with a local baker in Coconut Grove. With both hands, she grabbed it and shoved it to the ground. The cake collapsed, white frosting smearing across the floor, porcelain plates breaking into jagged pieces. The guests froze. My best friend, Sarah, gasped so loud I could hear it from across the room. Ethan stepped forward, his face tight with shock, but he stopped when he saw me. I didn't move. I didn't scream. I just stood there, feeling the champagne soak into my skin, the weight of everyone's eyes on me. Lauren's words echoed in my head. "This is all a lie." What did she mean? That my happiness was fake? That I didn't deserve this day? I wanted to yell back to ask why she hated me so much, but my throat felt stuck. Instead, I felt a strange mix of anger and pity. Lauren had always been the loud one, the one who needed attention like oxygen. But this was too much. I'd spent nearly $30,000 on this wedding, money I'd saved from my job as a marketing coordinator in downtown Miami. It wasn't extravagant by Coral Gables standards. Most couples here spend double that, but it was mine. Planned down to the last napkin. And now my sister had ruined it in seconds. I caught my mother's eye across the room. She was already moving toward Lauren, her face soft like she was about to comfort a child. I knew what was coming next, and it made my stomach twist. My mother reached Lauren first, wrapping her arms around her like she was the one who had been hurt. "Lauren's just overwhelmed," she said, loud enough for the guests to hear, as if that explained everything. "It's been a tough year for her." I watched them, my dress sticking to my skin, the champagne drying into a sticky mess. Part of me wanted to cry, to let out the frustration building in my chest, but another part felt numb, like this was something I'd always known was coming. Lauren had her moments of sweetness, like when we'd bake cookies together as kids in our small kitchen in Kendall, but those were rare now. She struggled with feeling left behind, especially after her last breakup, and I think that's what fueled her outbursts, a deep insecurity that made her lash out at anyone who seemed to have it together. The planner from the Biltmore hurried over, whispering about damage control, but I barely heard her. Ethan came to my side, his hand on my arm, steady as always. He's a software engineer at a firm in downtown Miami, the kind of guy who fixes problems quietly. "We can still do this," he murmured. But the moment was gone. The guests shifted uncomfortably, some murmuring, others checking their phones. I nodded to Ethan, and we went through with the ceremony, short and awkward with frosting still on the floor. That night, while everyone else tried to salvage the reception in the hotel's outdoor courtyard, palm trees swaying under the Florida stars, I slipped away to our room. Up there, alone for a bit while Ethan talked to family, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my reflection in the mirror. The room was elegant with high ceilings and views of the golf course, but it felt empty. I thought about all the times I'd helped Lauren, like paying that $1,000 deposit for her summer internship housing in New York City. It was for a program at a nonprofit in Manhattan, something she was excited about, and since her credit wasn't great from some old student loans, I'd covered it out of my savings. Average housing for interns there runs about $2,000 a month, but the deposit was just to hold her spot in a shared apartment. Nothing extravagant, just practical help because she's family. But now? I pulled out my phone and started making calls. I canceled that payment first. It hadn't fully processed yet, so the refund would come back to me. Then I flagged the lease I'd co-signed for her Brooklyn apartment as a clerical error, the one she planned to move into after the internship. It was a one-bedroom in Bushwick, rent around $4,000 a month, which is typical for that area in 2025, and I'd only co-signed because her score was low. Finally, I emailed her university's career office at NYU, withdrawing the recommendation I'd written for her graduate program in social work. By the time I was done, my hands were steady, but my heart raced with a mix of guilt and relief. The real surprise, though? That was saved for the morning. Growing up in Kendall, a quiet suburb south of Miami, our family home was a modest 3-bedroom ranch house with a screened-in porch where we'd sit during rainy afternoons. The neighborhood was full of palm trees and kids riding bikes, the kind of place where everyone knew each other from school events or block parties. Lauren and I shared a room until I was 12, posters of pop stars on the walls and clothes scattered everywhere. She was always the outgoing one, the sister who made friends easily and lit up family gatherings with her stories. But underneath that charm, Lauren carried a lot of insecurity. She had trouble sticking with things, dropped out of community college after one semester because it felt too hard, and her relationships never lasted more than a few months. I think that's why she resented me sometimes. My steadiness highlighted her struggles. Our parents worked hard. Dad is a mechanic at a shop in Doral, Mom is a nurse at a clinic in Coral Gables. They called Lauren spirited, her moods just part of her passionate nature. When she threw tantrums as a kid, they'd hug her and say she needed extra love. Me? I was Olivia, the reliable one. I kept my room tidy, got good grades without much fuss, and helped around the house. But that made me seem cold to them, like I didn't need as much attention. I remember when I earned a full scholarship to the University of Miami for business marketing. It covered tuition, about $30,000 a year back then, which was a huge relief for our family. Instead of celebrating, Mom said Lauren needed encouragement too, so they signed her up for acting classes at a local theater in South Miami. Those classes cost around $2,000 a year, paid from their savings, because they thought it would build her confidence. It was typical. Lauren's needs always came with a price tag, while I figured things out on my own. When I got engaged to Ethan last year, after dating for 3 years, our parents were happy but cautious. Ethan proposed during a sunset walk on South Beach, the ocean waves crashing behind us, and it felt perfect. He's from a similar background, grew up in Fort Lauderdale, and we met at a networking event in Miami. But Mom pulled me aside and said not to make Lauren feel left behind. Lauren had just broken up with her boyfriend, a guy who worked at a bar in Wynwood, and she was spiraling a bit, staying out late, posting cryptic things on social media about betrayal. I understood her pain. She'd always dreamed of a big wedding herself, but life hadn't gone that way. Still, her jealousy simmered. I wasn't trying to outshine her. I just worked harder, putting in long hours at my office in Brickell, a high-rise building with views of Biscayne Bay, to build a stable life. That stability was my sin, I guess, making her feel like she was failing by comparison. Part of me felt sorry for her, knowing how much she struggled with self-doubt, but another part was tired of always stepping back. The signs of Lauren's jealousy started showing up about a year before the wedding, subtle at first but building over time. It began with little comments at our family dinners, which we still had every Sunday at the house in Kendall. The kitchen table would be loaded with Mom's Cuban-inspired dishes, arroz con pollo and plantains, since Dad's family has roots in Miami's Cuban community. Lauren would say things like, "Wow, Olivia, engaged already? I didn't think you'd beat me to it." She'd laugh it off, but there was an edge to it, like she was masking her hurt. I knew she was going through a rough patch. She'd lost her job at a boutique in Aventura Mall, where she worked as a sales associate, earning about $15 an hour plus commission. It wasn't much, but it suited her social side. After that, she bounced between temp gigs, and I think seeing me plan a future with Ethan made her feel stuck. Then there were the jabs about Ethan. He's cute, but kind of boring, no? She'd say during a barbecue in the backyard, flipping burgers on the grill while the humid Florida air clung to us. Ethan isn't boring. He's thoughtful. The type who plans surprise picnics at Oleta River State Park with kayaks and sandwiches. But Lauren had dated flashy guys, bartenders or musicians from the Wynwood scene, and their drama always ended badly. I brushed off her comments, telling myself it was just sibling teasing, but deep down, it stung. Part of me wondered if she was right, if I was settling, but another part knew she was projecting her own regrets. The dress fitting was when it really escalated. We went to a bridal shop in Coconut Grove, a quaint area with tree-lined streets and outdoor cafes where people sip coffee under banyan trees. The shop was small, with racks of gowns and a fitting room that smelled like fresh fabric softener. My dress cost about $1,500, which I paid from my savings. Average for a nice gown in Miami, nothing over the top. Lauren showed up wearing a white sundress, which raised eyebrows from the seamstress. I asked her why, trying to keep my voice light. "Relax, no one's going to think I'm the bride," she said, rolling her eyes, but her tone was defensive. I let it go, not wanting to argue, but inside I felt a flicker of annoyance mixed with concern. Lauren had always wanted to be the center of attention, ever since her high school theater days, but this felt like she was trying to steal a piece of my moment to fill some void in her own life. The next day, she posted a selfie from the fitting on Instagram, cropping me out completely. The caption read, "Born to Shine." It got likes from her friends, people from her old job or the local party scene, but my friends noticed and texted me about it. Even Ethan saw it and asked if everything was okay. He works in a modern office in Brickell, surrounded by glass walls and city views, and he's good at spotting tension. The wedding planner at the Biltmore mentioned it too, suggesting I consider removing Lauren from the bridal party. But I said no. I wanted her close, not because I was naive, but because I thought keeping an eye on her might prevent worse. Or maybe I was just hoping she'd snap out of it, show the sister I remembered from our childhood sleepovers. My bridesmaids noticed the tension right away. Sarah, who's been my friend since college at the University of Miami, pulled me aside after the dress fitting. We were grabbing coffee at a spot in Coconut Grove, sitting outside under the shade of oak trees, the air filled with the scent of blooming jasmine. "Olivia, that post Lauren made, it's weird." "You sure you want her in the bridal party?" she asked, stirring her latte. Sarah works as a teacher at an elementary school in Pinecrest, always looking out for people like they're her students. Ethan mentioned it too, one evening in our condo in Coral Gables. Our place is a 2-bedroom on the second floor with a balcony overlooking a quiet street lined with royal palms. He was cooking dinner, pasta with shrimp, a recipe from his mom, and said, "If she's making you uncomfortable, we can adjust the lineup." Even the wedding planner at the Biltmore, a professional woman in her 40s with years of handling Miami's high society events, suggested it during our final walkthrough. The ballroom was empty then, sunlight streaming through the tall windows, and she said, "I've seen family dynamics like this before. It's your day." I told them all no, that I wanted Lauren close. Part of it was habit. Growing up, we'd been inseparable in some ways, sharing secrets during late-night talks in our shared room. But honestly, it wasn't just sentiment. I think I kept her in because I sensed the storm coming and wanted to manage it. Lauren wasn't all bad. She had her vulnerabilities, like how she'd call me crying after a bad date, admitting she felt lost compared to my steady path. Those moments made me feel protective, even if they frustrated me. Keeping her near felt like a way to control the situation, to hope she'd see how much I cared. Or maybe I was fooling myself, ignoring the resentment building in her. She thought my quiet nature meant I was soft, easy to push around. But I wasn't soft. I was patient, the kind of person who plans every detail at work, analyzing marketing campaigns in my office cubicle with its view of the bustling Brickell Avenue below. Silence had always been my strength, a way to observe and decide when to act. Looking back, I wonder if I should have confronted her earlier, but at the time, it felt like the right choice. After her outburst at the wedding, Lauren stumbled off to one of the hotel suites, drunk and unapologetic. The Biltmore has these luxurious rooms with plush carpets and ocean views, but she probably didn't notice. Passing out on the king-size bed without a word. Mom stayed with her, rubbing her back and saying it was just wedding stress, that Lauren had been dealing with a lot lately, like job hunting and feeling overshadowed. I get that. Lauren had confided in me before about how hard it was to watch friends move forward while she felt stuck. But that night, as I sat in my own room with Ethan wiping off the sticky champagne residue in the marble bathroom, Mom's words echoed, "You should understand her pain, Olivia. Be the bigger person." So I decided to do just that, but in my own way. My heart was a mess, angry at the ruin of my day, sad for the sister I used to know, and a little guilty for what I was about to do. But I pushed forward, telling myself it was necessary. First, I called the internship program in Manhattan. It was a nonprofit focused on community outreach, the kind of place Lauren thought would give her a fresh start. I'd covered the $750 deposit for her summer housing, a shared apartment in the East Village, which runs about $3,000 a month on average in New York City for 2025. But the deposit was just to secure her spot since the internship itself was unpaid. Many young people rely on family for that initial help, especially in expensive cities like New York, where starting out can be tough without support. Since the program hadn't started yet and the payment was still pending, they refunded it without issue when I explained it was a family matter. It felt straightforward, but my hands shook a bit as I hung up. Second, the apartment lease in Brooklyn. Lauren had found a one-bedroom in Bushwick through an online listing, rent at $4,000 a month, which is pretty standard for that neighborhood now, up from a few years ago due to more people moving in for the artsy vibe and proximity to Manhattan. Her credit score was around 600, low from some unpaid bills and student loans, totaling about $5,000, so I'd co-signed to help her get approved. In New York, co-signers are common for young renters with spotty credit, but the lease hadn't fully gone into effect yet. It was still in the review phase, no keys exchanged. I contacted the landlord and explained it as a clerical error on my part, and since it wasn't binding, they agreed to void it. Legally, in New York, if a lease isn't fully executed with all signatures and deposits cleared, you can withdraw without much hassle, as long as no one's moved in. It was a relief, but I felt a pang of regret, knowing how excited she'd been about the place, with its exposed brick walls and rooftop access. Third, I emailed NYU's career office to retract my recommendation for her master's program in social work. I'd written it months ago, highlighting her passion, but now I cited recent concerns about reliability. Nothing dramatic, just honest based on her patterns. Universities like NYU review applications holistically, and withdrawing a letter prompts them to reassess. But it doesn't automatically reject someone. It's more of a flag for further discussion. Lauren had been so hopeful about the program, tuition around $56,000 a year, but she hadn't enrolled yet, so no money was lost there. The final step was the hardest. A few months earlier, at a family barbecue in our backyard in Kendall, the grill smoking with burgers, neighbors chatting over the fence, Lauren had bragged about using a fake ID to get into clubs in Miami's South Beach scene. She laughed it off, saying it made her feel adventurous, but I could tell it was her way of coping with boredom. I'd recorded it on my phone, not out of malice, just a habit from work where I document meetings. That night, I sent the clip anonymously to her university's disciplinary board with a note about potential conduct issues. Schools have codes of conduct, and reporting something like this usually leads to an investigation, a hearing where they review evidence and decide on probation or warnings, not immediate expulsion. It's meant to be fair, giving the student a chance to explain. In Florida, where her undergrad was, it's handled internally without legal escalation, unless it's criminal. As I hit send, I felt conflicted. Protective instincts clashing with the need to set boundaries, but I did it, knowing it might force her to face her choices. At 8 in the morning, Lauren woke up to the fallout. I wasn't there to see it, but I can imagine it from the frantic calls that followed. She'd probably rolled over in that hotel bed, head pounding from the night before, and grabbed her phone. First, a text from the internship program. Her spot was canceled. The $750 deposit refunded due to the withdrawal. Then a call from the Brooklyn landlord, confirming the lease was voided. No apartment waiting for her in Bushwick with its trendy cafes and street art murals. An email from NYU popped up next, saying her application was under review because of the retracted recommendation. Chaos hit her all at once, the kind that makes your stomach drop. Lauren isn't one to handle rejection well. She'd told me before how it triggered her fears of not measuring up, stemming from years of comparing herself to others in our competitive Miami social circles. She ran to Mom's room, sobbing, probably collapsing on the floral patterned couch in the suite. Mom tried to calm her like always, but even she sounded shaken in the voicemails she left me later. "Olivia, what happened? Lauren's devastated." I was already gone by then, checked into a beachfront suite at the Fontainebleau in Miami Beach with Ethan. The hotel is iconic, with its curved architecture and ocean views, the sound of waves crashing outside our window. We sipped coffee on the balcony, watching the early morning joggers on the boardwalk, and for the first time that day, I felt a sense of calm mixed with unease. My phone buzzed 6 times. Calls from Mom, a couple from Lauren, but I didn't pick up. Part of me wanted to explain, to say it was about consequences, but another part enjoyed the quiet, the space from the drama. The refund from the internship deposit hit my account that morning, a small confirmation that things were shifting. It wasn't about the money. It was about drawing a line after years of giving in. A week later, Lauren showed up at my condo in Coral Gables unannounced. Our building is a mid-rise with a gated entrance and a pool in the courtyard, the kind of place Ethan and I chose for its quiet neighborhood feel, close to shops and parks. I heard the buzzer and saw her on the intercom screen, her eyes red and puffy, hair messy like she hadn't slept. I let her in, not sure what to expect, but ready to face it. She stormed through the door into our living room with its cozy sectional couch and bookshelves filled with marketing textbooks and Ethan's tech gadgets. "Why would you do this, Olivia?" she said, her voice breaking, hands clenched at her sides. She looked smaller than usual, vulnerable, and for a second I saw the little sister who'd cling to me during thunderstorms back in Kendall. I was sipping coffee at the kitchen island, the morning light filtering through the blinds, and I stayed calm, setting my mug down slowly. "You did this, Lauren, not me." The words came out even, but inside I felt a swirl, satisfaction that she was finally seeing consequences, mixed with a twinge of sadness for how we'd ended up here. Lauren froze. No quick comeback like she usually had, just silence hanging in the air. That was new. She was always the one with words, filling spaces with stories or excuses. I think in that moment she realized her actions had real weight, stemming from her deep-seated fear of being overlooked, but it didn't excuse the hurt she'd caused. Mom called a few hours later, her voice accusatory over the phone. I was at my desk in the spare room, which doubles as my home office with a view of the street below, reviewing work emails. "Olivia, this is cruel. Lauren's just acting out because she's hurting." I reminded her of the champagne soaking my dress, the cake smashed on the ballroom floor, and the video a guest had uploaded online, still circulating on social media, showing Lauren's outburst clear as day. Since the wedding was a public event at the Biltmore, filming was allowed, and sharing it didn't break any laws. It's just people documenting what happened, no privacy invasion there. Mom went quiet, maybe acknowledging for once that Lauren's issues couldn't always be brushed aside. The fallout settled in quietly but firmly. Lauren's NYU application was put on hold for review. They have a process where they might ask for more info or even a hearing. But since she hadn't enrolled or paid the $56,000 annual tuition yet, no big financial loss hit right away. It's competitive there, and reliability matters. She tried posting on social media about toxic family dynamics, vague rants from her old bedroom in Kendall. But the wedding video contradicted her story. People remembered the drama, and comments called her out. It made her pull back, facing the mirror of her own choices. Lauren ended up moving back into our parents' house in Kendall, the same 3-bedroom place with the faded blue shutters and the backyard mango tree we'd climbed as kids. Her plans for New York fell apart completely. The internship gone, no apartment in Brooklyn, and her NYU application stalled pending the review. She took what she called a gap year, but it stretched into more, landing her a job at a clothing store in the Dataland Mall, a busy shopping center in South Miami with its mix of high-end shops and food courts buzzing with locals and tourists. She earns about $15 an hour there, which is around the average for retail sales associates in Florida these days, especially starting out without much experience. It's not glamorous, folding clothes, dealing with customers during the humid summer rushes. But it's steady work, and I think it's forced her to build some routine. She tried venting on social media, posting about mental health struggles and family betrayal from her old room, surrounded by posters and mementos from high school, but not many people bought into it. The wedding video was still out there, shared by a cousin on their feed, showing her side of the story in raw detail. Comments piled up, some supportive, but others pointing out the drama she'd caused. Lauren has her complexities. She's not just spiteful. Her actions come from a place of deep insecurity, feeling like life passed her by while I moved ahead. I've heard from Mom that she's seeing a therapist now, working through those feelings, which makes me hopeful, even if a bit detached. As for Ethan and me, we focused on building our life together. We took a trip to Key West a few months later, driving down the overseas highway with its endless ocean views, staying in a quaint bed and breakfast with hammocks swaying in the breeze. It's a popular spot for Floridians, escaping the Miami hustle for conch fritters and sunset sails. Back home, we settled into our condo routine, me advancing at my marketing job, pitching campaigns from my office overlooking the bay, and Ethan tinkering with code in his home setup. No more chaos or sabotage, just the peaceful everyday cooking meals, walking the neighborhood, planning for the future. I don't miss the old family dynamics, not really. Though sometimes I wonder what could have been if things were different. People have called me cold for what I did, and maybe there's some truth to that. I don't feel the warmth toward Lauren that I used to, the sisterly pull that made me overlook her flaws. But I see it as setting boundaries. Something I learned the hard way in the sunny, fast-paced world of Miami where family ties can be both a comfort and a trap. Let others think you're soft if they want. Let them read your silence as weakness. Then, when the time is right, make your move. Quiet isn't about hiding. It's about choosing your moments wisely. And real revenge? It's not the loud, flashy kind that burns out quick. It's the kind that lasts, changing things for good. Looking back, I feel a mix of peace and a quiet ache, wondering if we could have fixed things differently, but I know this was the path that led me to where I am now,